So as part of this InfyTQ training, we will now move to the Word with the usage of the DDL commands. Followed by DCL commands, DML commands, and TCL commands. So these are the main essential items when we are going to use an SQL for any type of query retrieval, etc. So we have listed out the various commands in our earlier session. So the commands what we have listed was with creating, alterating, dropping, truncating. The second category for DCL will be grant and revoke. Third thing, the data manipulation language command with insert, delete, update, and select command. And when we are going to put the select command, it will be with the from clause, group by clause, whereby, where, order by. So these will be the 6 type of clauses which will be internal components for the select command. And to make the undo and redo operation or to make the record permanent, we will work with the TCL commands, transaction control commands, such as commit and rollback. So these are the primitives what the core content of SQL is made up of. So now let us start with working of the exercises which are prompted for SQL operations. So we will start with simple items, then maybe if it is complex, we can have a further discussion on it. So the basic content what we are going to look will be creating of a command table followed by dropping of a table. So the very first thing was we need to construct the schema. We need to construct the schema. So how we are going to construct the schema was we will use the syntax create followed by table, and this is a user defined name. This is a user defined name, and in this user defined name we will provoke with the table name. Later on we will declare the fields or the attributes or the columns what we call, followed by the data type and mentioning the size. This is first primitive of usage of the table. Then if we are in a process that we need to drop the table, then we are going to use the command called as a drop. So this is how we are going to use create table and drop table primitives. So most important part was the flexibility of using this portal was there is no other platform where we can bring the exercise part and the content part for the InfyTQ. So this is the funda and where we should take away these inputs. So in the portal itself, they are giving us create table followed by student name, and if we are going to hit on the run button, so obviously it is going to display some errors. So the error, I think it is prompting us to put some comma here. So what was here to put some comma in this case. So not taking any input previous 1 second. So yeah, it is going to show that missing right parenthesis. The problem was after the integer we didn't put a colon, and at the DOG also the date of birth we didn't put a comma of ending correctly. So this was the error. So it is taking time to load. So the other word what we have to discuss here was constraints. So constraints are nothing but conditions are going to put over the table, and the different constraints was the main objective was that it should follow the boycott rules, the 12 boycott rules, and the most importantly we are enforcing it to have query retrieval process with one we call it as not null, two we call it as primary key, three we can call it as check, and fourth unique and foreign keys. Now when we put up a constraint can be laid on two aspects. One, it is at a column, another it can be given at a table. So if we are applying it, it says a table level constraint for an entire database. For a column, if we are going to lay, then it is a column level constraint. For an attribute we are going to take. Now, how can we do these all items, etc. was, there are the primitives called as not null. So the first one we are going to call it as not null was that it is going to check that the value, some value has to be filled into that content. Second thing was a primary key. In the entire database, it should be unique and it should be prompted with the not null. Third, we will be checking that it should be meeting some certain condition, giving that if I'm going to give marks, so it is between 0 to 100. So it will always check that it should not be less than 0, it should be not be greater than 100. So in this model, if it is going to give, then we are going to say it will be of the check constraint. Unique, it says that mostly it will be as equivalent to candidate key or alternate key for a database, and more or less it is going to be equivalent to the primary key, etc. And foreign key we are going to make it as a reference key, and the primary if we are able to, definitely the table 1 and table 2, definitely these two items has to be in this way. That is, these two columns should be primary key. So this is the main intention of why we are going to put the constraints. So let us see how constraints are going to be applied over the table in detail. So very first is not null. So I can say student name, and it is going to be some varchar 2 of 20, and then I'm going to mention it as not null. So if we are going to put a space, or if we are going to put it in with some value, so that is where the not null is going to play a prominent value at this case. So here is an example which it is going to showcase create followed by table followed by the name of a table. We are going to call it as a student here. and thereby we are going to say student ID. It is going to be belonging to a data type called as an integer, and the constraint was that the constraint what we are discussing. So it is a condition which has to be met. We will be calling it that it should be not null. So not null, it is going to be a result word. And there are chances where the same condition can be used somewhere else in a table. Therefore, for that constraint, we are going to give some name. So the name of the constraint we are going to call here as a student underscore SID underscore NN. So this is how we are going to bring. And the next word what we are going to call here as the first name followed by the last name. So again you can see here last name there is no not null defined, but compulsory the given name is going to be the first name, so that we should not be empty. So therefore when we are going to hit on the run button at this point of time, you can see that a schema is going to be erased, a schema is going to be obtained, and this schema you can see here it is student ID followed by first name and last name, and thereby whatever constraints we invoke not null here, not null here, those two constraints are going to be brought, and whatever data type we have defined varchar, so this it is schema for that content. Next thing, how you can make an insert operation. So when we are going to do some insert operation at this case, so the first primitive was what it is going to ask was, there are 4 ways the persons are going to interpret. First one, we are going to assume that there is an invalid record. So what is an invalid record means, here I am going to use not null. Here I am going to show null value. But what was the condition? The condition we called it as not null, but still we are going to put null value. So does it accept or not? So we are about to look. So as the constraint, we are going to define that it is going to be not null, but still if we are going to give up a null value, so there we are going to get this error. Next one, let us check with some valid record. So when we are going to check with this valid record, now let us say that we are going to have the student ID here followed by name Alex and last name as F, and if we are going to hit on the run button, now you can see one record was inserted successfully. You can see at this point one record it was inserted successfully. So this is how the very first constraint what we are going to call, that is not null, is satisfied. Now let us look at the second way of putting the things. So assume that there was a girl who is having a height of 5.5, and the default weight, assume that it is going to be some 40 kgs. So it may grow, it may stretch, it may not stretch. So assume that at that time there is no weighing machine and an accurate value is not going to be there. So obviously the operator there, he will not take any risk with the default value. So in that model, we are going to have a default nature. So if it goes with the value, yeah, it is in that range, it takes. Otherwise, it will be fixing up with the default values. So how is this default value interpreted? Means here we are going to say that we are going to have date of birth. Date of birth belongs to a data type called as date. And here you can see it is put with a constraint called as a default, and it is going to have a system date. So we are now putting this DOJ. We call it as a date of joining. Date of joining. So when we are going to call it as date of joining, now you can interpret at this case. So assume a girl was joining a company called as Infosys.
So assume she is joining today. So obviously there is no need to type the date. So what will the operator do was he is going to input the value with the system date itself. So when I am going to hit on the run button, at this case, you can understand that the date of joining is going to be a date data type. It is a number and it is a varchar. Then if we are going to make an insert operation and select a default value, so select a default value here and assume we are going to type the word sysdate. So you can observe here the sysdate, it is now the we can see here the sysdate, it is displaying 4th February 2022. So this is how a date of joining is going to give its prominence. Otherwise, there are some other cases which we are going to put. So assume the date of joining was at 2015. So if we're going to hit on the run button, again now you can see this. Again, you can see this. The records, they are going to be fed. The earlier record, just now we talked, that is system date it has taken, and second one we are now prompting it with some value, and that value date it is going to be obtained. So you say it is 5th Jan 15. So this is how a default is going to play one of a prominent role for the SQL command towards execution. After default, the other constraint what we need to look after default, the other constraint what we need to look, and other important thing was we are going to call here as a primary key constraint. We are going to call it as primary key constraint. So in this primary key constraint, so how we are going to define the primary key? So we are going to say it is an integer constraint. So whatever, I can't say 19B01A0501 because it is a mixed character. So it will not accept at this case. It will accept only 501. Why? Because we are defining the data here. For this, we are going to give a username. For this, we are going to use username. So next onwards, if we are working with PL/SQL, and if you want to write a program over the constraint, so obviously you will take that constraint and thereby we will use the command constraint will be advantage. Here you can see the keyword, the result word, what we are going to say, we call it as a primary key that it is going to obtain. So this is how we are going to put the very first point, that is we are going to have at this point. So integer constraint, this is first to take away. Next, yeah, we are going to have first name and contact number. So these, they are going to be defined, one with a varchar and another with a numeric value. So let us try to hit on the run button and see first to create a table. Yeah, table was created and a constraint was created with not null, and it is assumed here as a primary key. Now let us see to make some insert operation into this. First one, we are going to give some valid record. So in this valid record, we are going to prompt 1001, and then we are going to put some the single quotes, some KRCR, and then we are going to hit on the run button at this case. Now you can see the student ID followed by first name, the constraint. So everything is going to come into this scenario. So let us see what happens if we are going to put this null value. What happens if we are going to put a null value in the primary key location? We are aware that this position what we are going to show is primary key constraint. It is a primary key constraint. So primary key constraint, as per definition, it is unique and not null. But what we are going to do, we are going to make a null operation, which it is going to show some error. So let us debug this and check what happens. Error is going to happen. So it is going to give some violation, which is saying that the primary key will not accept any null value. So this is the unique way of putting the primary key content. And let us see what happens if we are going to insert a duplicate record. So assume the earlier record was existing, and if we are going to try with another record, so it is again with 1001, and that 1001 is already existing, so it is not going to display the content. So this is how we are going to prompt up the values regarding primary key constraints. The other constraint what we have to bring at this case, it is going to be called as check constraint. So in this check constraint, it is going to give up a range. So gender, we are going to put the gender, it should be either a male or gender should be either female. So whenever we are going to enter some value, so we are going to put only M, or we are going to put F. So other than this, like A or B or C, other than these numbers, the constraint is not going to accept. So that is what we are going to call here as a check constraint. So that is what we are going to call here as a check constraint. So in check constraint, we are going to use a gender, and gender is going to be with an in operator between male and female. Other than M character, other than F character, it is not going to prompt any of the other characters. So let us see how we are going to use this with a table. So, and then we will try to insert with some conditions. The very first condition, we are going to give it as a valid condition. So in this valid condition, we are going to give 1002, and the first name was Alex and his gender was M. So yeah, if it is valid, yeah, it accepts the content. Now let us check with some invalid. So in this invalid, the system is prompting up with 1001 Alex, and gender it is given as some X. Therefore, when it is violating the check constraint, so we are given already a specific rule to a column. The specific rule to a column was only 2 characters has to be accepted, male or female, but it is going to take up only, it will take up only M or F, but it is fed with an X, so it doesn't take. So this is how we are going to check, use the check constraint, followed by unique. So as you can look at this definition again. So when we are going to use this unique constraint, so unique constraint is on a column, it is going to ensure that no 2 rows in a table cannot have the same value. So this was what the clear-cut definition this unique is going to give. So no 2 columns will have the same value. For that, we are going to put this unique constraint. So how we are going to do it means, yeah, you can see at this case, we are going to have the contact number, and contact number for me it is unique, for you it is unique. In the entire world, only one mobile number can happen. So everybody will have a unique mobile number. So that is where we are going to put this as a unique constraint. So if we are going to give the same mobile number to another employee in an organization, so it will be a type mismatch. So at that case, no 2 elements if the yes, we can say unique is going to happen. If it matches, definitely there is an error, and we have to recheck on that issue. So now let us click on this creating of a table. Once table is created, you can see that constraint is there, and contact number is there. Then we are going to put an insert operation, checking with some valid record and putting some 9885774455, and when we are going to hit on the run button, yeah, we will use this, we can see this number as it is first time, yeah, it is valid. Let us see if we are going give input in this case. So when we are going to give the same input at this match, there will be a mismatch. So because we are using a unique constraint and the violation of that unique constraint is going to happen. So which is not true. So that is where a unique constraint checks. So always it sees that there should not be a duplicate entry in that column. So where a null is going to have that prominence. The other interesting feature for the foreign key constraint was that the need for a foreign key was that yes, we have two tables, and between two tables we need to make a relation. So between two tables we need to make a relation. Obviously the related content should be a primary key. This is the first and foremost content. So here you can see that there is a table called as marks, and it contains course ID, some student ID, followed by marks secured, and again you can see marks. So the secured marks, it is giving it as 5,2. That means xxx dot xx. So holistically this it is showing 5 elements. In this 5, 2 elements are going to occupy the fraction part, and the 3 elements it is to occupy the most important. When we are going to check on the numeric data, definitely 5,2 in such conditions are occur, we should see how many positions are allotted to decimal part and how many positions are allotted to fraction part. So this is the takeaway again here at this point of time. And so schema is created, then we make some first record. This is also done. Now what we have to do is, what will be the usage for the foreign key? So this is what we have to look. So we created a table at the earlier value with the student, and now we are going to say earlier table. Here you can see it is going to be the student table, and in this student table we made 1001, 1002, John and the contact numbers at this case. Now we are going to create one more table. So at this one more table we are going to put this constraint, and the name of the foreign key constraint is marks underscore SID underscore foreign key, and foreign key will always be hold with a word called as reference key. So this is quite important. And where this table is going to refer, it is going to refer with the table name followed by field. That two we are going to call as primary key. These two are going to derive parts. This is how we are going to bring this as a foreign key constraint. So let us check whether a foreign key has been applied to this or not. So you can see here course ID followed by student ID followed by the marks code. So these are going to be inputted, and let us check an insert operation at this case. So when we are going to have this insert operation, now we joined two tables. So this was the interesting part. This is second table. Student ID is taken from first table. So what is the sense? The sense was we made linking between two tables. That too we have used a word called as a reference key. So this is how we are going to make an interpretation of using different constraints. So at this case, what are the different constraints means we had an enough discussion up to now. The different constraints, we will just have a quick recap here. So you can see, one we are going to call it as not null, two we are going to call it as default, 3 we are going to call it as primary key, 4th one we are going to call it as unique key, 5th one we are going to call it as foreign key. So these are the prime contents when we are going to put this key constraints. Fine. After key constraints, let us say that we have the next part of the data definition language command. That too we are going to call as alter table. That too we are going to call it alter table. So the primary intention of altering was to join, to modify, etc. So modification will happen either to a table, or modification can happen either to a column. Modification can happen either to a table, or modification can happen either to a column. That means I will take a realistic example. Assume there was a house and there are 4 rooms in it, and this is the first time done. So this was the schema. So in this schema, I have room 1, room 2, room 3 and room 4. All are called as a ground floor. So after years, you want to go for extension of your house. So you will build the again first floor 1 1, 1 2, 1 3 and 1 4. So here is the old schema, and now we are going to have a new schema. So from the old schema, you are extending new schema. That means earlier you have having 1 2 3 4 columns. Now you are going to have 4 plus 4 8 columns. So the table size has been rearranged. The house size has been rearranged. So in this model, how can I convert from a old schema to new schema? Means it can be converted with a definition called as an altering. So alter can happen at a table level, alter can happen at a column level. So this was the foremost key takeaway what we are going to interpret at this case. So now let us take some examples here. We are going to call it as altering, followed by table, followed by the name of a table. So earlier we are going to have 2 fields. For that 2 fields, now we are going to add one more field, its data type and its size. So first we are going to take the user defined name. After user defined name, we are going to call it as data type, followed by the size. So all 3 are going to be propagated at the same content. So this is what we are going to add a column. Similarly, it doesn't mean that we are going to confining it to only an addition of a column. So once a table has been created, later on you can modify, you can even add a constraint. So first of all, you didn't made a student ID as a constraint. Later on, you thought that student ID has to be modified. Therefore, we will now append the table, we will alter the table, thereby we can create a primary key. So this is how we are going to make a altering. Okay, fine. You don't want to use one specific field in your table. That means you want to delete an item. If you want to delete an item, then we are going to say that alter table. Here you are going to mention the first word for the data definition language. So these all falls in the data definition language. So at this case, we are going to say alter table. Then we are going to make a drop operation. In this way, we are using altering to rename, to addition of a column, addition of a constraint. All these are going to be feasible with this alter table content. After alter table, we have data manipulation language commands. So here we can have insert, delete, update. So such type of commands are going to be feasible at the data manipulation. So how you are going to make a insert operation at this case? So there are different ways where insert can be used to add some tuples. Where insert, it is going to be used to make addition of a tuples. The other name for the tuples, we are going to call it as records. Now we are going to use insert followed by into, again it is a keyword, then employee is going to be a user defined table name. Then we are going to have one more reserved word called as values. There we are going to have one followed by the student name, his date of birth or date of joining. So in this way we are going to put the values. Assume that we are not aware of that value. So instead of putting it as empty, we are going to put it as null. So you don't know the bonus. So obviously you are putting null value at this case. So for date data type and for character data type, you can or you must use quotes. It is going to be a single quote or it can be a double quotes. So single quote or a double quote, we are going to fed with the character data. So this is the key takeaway when we are going to make a insert operation. So we are parallelly working with insert operations. So we will not look into again in depth the insert, and then after insert, this is the most important way, most important command in the SQL. So mostly why we are going to use select means it is for retrieving of data. It is for retrieving of data. We have a database and we need to get the data. So every query, if we want to make some retrieving, definitely it has to go for the table, it has to bring up the tuples, it has to bring up the records. So that it is going to be feasible with the select command. So how is this select command organized means? It is going to be organized with various clauses. The usage here, you can have first one asterisk. So what this asterisk will tell us, it will take all the attributes in the table. It will go with all the attributes in the table. Or if I am going to take only 2 attributes, I will need only 2 attributes. So we will specify what are the attributes we need. Only those 2 attributes can be taken up. This is the first one. So we are going to have the select as a command which it is written at the beginning. Then start the clauses. Here asterisk, the technical word putting asterisk here, we are going to call it as wildcard. We will be calling it as wildcard. So yesterday we discussed one with an asterisk, another with an hyphen, and another with a percentage. So when we are working with the strings, we need to find the pattern, exact match, specific match. So for that we are going to use this hyphen or a percentage symbols. Now here we are going to bring up from the table name, from which table we are going to bring, and from here we are going to make the clause. So here at this point of time we are going to have the where clause. After where clause, it is going to fed with some condition. It is going to meet some condition. So if the salary is greater than 10,000, only the employees who are meeting that condition only, they are going to be brought. So this is how it has been tailored for the SQL command. So SQL command, it is purely based on the clauses. The different clauses will be where clause, will be group by clause, will be order by clause, or having clause So where, group by, order by, and followed by having. So these are the different clauses. We missed one clause, I think it is from. So after select command, let us see its usage. The very first usage, we have seen that it is going to take where condition, putting where it is going to use as a clause. Then we taken a attribute, and then we made a comparison operator, and we have given some condition. So salary is greater than 40,000 you need. So only those conditions are going to be brought. So let us check with some more examples which are at this case. So here is a database where we are going to have an ID followed by employee number, date of birth, salary, bonus, department, designation, manager, and computer ID. So these are the different fields what we are going to have as part of the select class. Now these are different records, different tuples, what we can call, and there are values for the manager is for them managers are not assigned. Therefore, instead of putting it as blank, we are going to put this with the null value. Now, let us see some operations which are given in this drop down box. So we are going to filter one column. So when we are going to filter one column, so select ID and employee name and salary from employee. So now we should see that this is column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, column 6, column 7, column 8, and column 9. 9 columns are there. But here we are going to select only ID, the employee name second column, and his salary it is at the fourth column. So we take only 1 followed by 2 and followed by 4, and that too from the employee table. So now this is what we are going to have a lot of features. We call it as feature selection, and then we reduce it. So my query was to take only 3 features. So here we are going to make a dimension reduction. So out of 9 fields, we are going to take only 3 fields. So dimensions are going to be reduced. Only 3 features are going to be selected. So when we are going to hit on the run button, you can observe at this case, for the 5 records, we will have only the 3 fields, ID followed by employee name followed by salary. So rest of the fields are going to be ignored. So this is how we are bringing the first case. Now let us look at the second case. So at the second case, what they are going to propagate was putting some expression. So here is an expression what we are going to notify. So the expression what it is given was selecting of some employee name, and we have his salary earlier, and it is some 4,000 or 40,000 or 30,000. For that we are going to make some multiplication into 2. That means we are going to do some expression here. We are evaluating some expression, and we are going to give some aliases. We are going to give this name, we call it as aliases, or an alternative name, which it is not going to be hurting any problem towards the query optimization or query execution. So it is a name for that operation. So ename, yeah, it will be displayed ename. But what happens if I am not going to put the value? At that case, it will happen salary into 2. But instead of salary into 2, now we are going to write it as double salary. So this is the distinction we should understand here. So instead of writing salary into 2, it is going to display double into salary. So thereby it is selecting from the table what we are going to prompt. So let us see after execution, You can see here earlier it is some 40,000 is going to be the value here, 30,000 is going to be value here, and then when it is scrolled down, now you can see the 40,000 has been given to 80,000, 30,000 has been exchanged to 60,000. So in this way, we are going to use the expression. The expression, again, I just brought to your notice that earlier, if we are not writing an analysis, it is going to give salary into 2, but now you are going to give an analysis. That's the reason why it is displaying it as a double salary. So you have given a name to it. So that's the reason why it has given a double salary at this case. So this is how the different way of using the SQL expressions. And now again there is one more condition here. The condition what we are going to say, select some employee ID and which it has to be displayed as employee ID. E-name, it has to be renamed to employee name. Salary, of course it should remain same, so you didn't put an as condition, and from which table we are going to take. So that's the reason why when we are going to hit on the run button, we will not get ID, we will not get e-name, we will get employee ID and we will get employee name. So this was the takeaway at this case. The next one was, we need to have unique values. We need to get a novice value where there is no question of duplicate, where there is no question of duplicate. So if there is no question of duplicate, then how we are going to make means, we will do it with a word called as a distant. When we are going to use a keyword distant, then it says that there won't be any duplicate values. There won't be any duplicate values. So this is how a distant operation is going to be demonstrated. So now let us check. This is an employee table here, and you can see here there are different fields, employee ID, name, etc. Now let us use some query here. So to put some duplicates. So select department from employee. So now let us see departments. ICP is a department, ETA is a department, ETA is a department, ETA is a department, and ICP is a department. Now ETA is going to be repeated for 2 times, ICP is going to, ETA is repeated for 3 times, ICP is repeated for 2 times. Now instead of recurrent items, we will make this with a distant item. So we are going to eliminate the duplicates. So obviously one occurrence of ICP, one occurrence of ETA is going to happen. So first of all, we will be getting the duplicates. So ICP, ETA, ETA, ETA. Now we have to use a word called as a distinct to this case. Now we are going to use a distinct to this case. So you will find here, earlier there are 3 occurrences of ETA, only 1 occurrence came. Earlier there are 2 occurrences of ICP. Now you can see only there is 1 occurrence of ICP. So this is how a distinct is going to make a key role at this case. After distinct, let us look at the where class. So where is prominent, most prominent usage in the SQL command? So we have the employee table with the fields 1, 2, and 4, etc. Now we have ID, employee number, date of joining, salary, etc. So these are going to be the different fields at this case. And So this is already taken greater than 40,000. So let us check with another example using some AND operator. Using some AND operator. So when we are going to make some AND operator here, so select employee ID and the name of an employee, and we are going to use from. This is select command, and thereby we are going to use the clause called as where here, and then we are putting condition number 1, and then we are taking condition number 2. Between first condition and second condition, we are using the logic operation, so that is AND. So when we are working with a truth table, so 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, and if we are going to put some AND gate operation here, and definitely it is telling that y is equals to a into b. So obviously condition 1, condition 2 has to be met. Condition 1, condition 2 has to be met. So AND gate, now you can see that both are true, then only the answer is true. That means first condition has to be satisfied, next condition has to be satisfied, both are true, then only the query will result an valid answer. So here you can see we are working with an AND operation, and between first condition and second condition we are doing the AND operation, and thereby we are going to get the result. So you can see the condition, it was given that salary should be greater than 30,000, and he works for the department called as ETA. He works for the department called as ETA. So when these two conditions are satisfied in an employee, then only the query is going to be executed. So after AND, similarly we do have other operations here at this case, that is logical OR and between. So when we are going to take with this between operator, when we are going to take up between operator, so it will fix up with the minimum range and it will fix up with the maximum range. It will work with both the minimum range and it will work with both the maximum range. So 30,000 and 50,000. The salary should be between 30,000 and 50,000. So obviously 25,000 record will not be obtained, and we are taking inclusive. We are taking this inclusive 30,000 and 50,000. So the thing which is at 25,000, this record is going to be eliminated, and it is between 20,000 and 50,000. Again, 75,000 record is not going to fit, and similarly 90,000 record is not going to fit. Only we will get 30,000 and 40,000. Only we will get 30,000 and 40,000. Only these two records are going to be obtained. So how we can see here, when we are going to execute the command, now you can see this, or the record for the identifier 4, the record value for the identifier, the student, the employee ID for 4 and 5 is going to happen. So 4 and 5, yes, we were just talking about it. So 4 and 5, we told that one, it is going to be 30,000, another it is going to be of 40,000. So in this way, we are going to use a where command with AND, that is logical operations with arithmetic expressions. So we will be putting some conditions. Based on that condition, if the query is going to be met, data is going to be retrieved. So this is where the importance of using the where clause is going to happen. So after using this we can using the syntax of like, we can stop our class. So like, it is going to deal with the string. It is going to deal mostly with the string content with two symbols. One we are going to call it as percentage. So the other one we are going to call it as hyphen. So when we are going to say with percentage, you can see the definition which matches with any number of character. So this is the takeaway. It will match with any number of characters, but when we are going to work with an hyphen, it will check only it matches with exactly one character. So this is the difference, as I was mentioning earlier. So any number of characters it is going to match. First should be common, rest it can be any of the character, then you are going to use percentage. But if I'm going to use precisely this element should be there, at that case we will be using the hyphen. So now let us use these cases at this case. So make a selection here. First one, we are going to make a starting of a pattern. And in this case, you can see here, the student ID followed by employee name from employees, where employee name is going to be like E percentage. So obviously the employee name should start with E and rest can be any. So this is what the definition we were telling. So we can now look at the definition at this case. So the first character should match and rest of the items can be any. So E, it is starting up. So employee ID 2 followed by employee ID 3 will occur and remaining things will not be taken. So this is where we are going to call 2 and 3 are going to occur. So let us check with the other case, fixed pattern. So let us check with the last example, fixed pattern. So in this fixed pattern, what we are going to check was, we are telling that the date of joining should have these two positions for the date of joining should have two positions for the day, three positions for the month, and two positions for the year. So we are now looking at the exact way of data. So when we are going to hit on this button, you can see whoever are going to have the date of birth in the same is going to occur. So this is what the key takeaway from wildcard entries like which it is going to totally work on the string patterns or the character patterns. That is, first thing should be matched and the rest can be any of an optional. We go with percentage. If we are very precise and if we want to look for an exact match, then we are going to work with the hyphen. So this is where the like operation is happening. So thank you. We will end up the class for today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we will end the class. Thank you for joining. You can leave. Thank you.